In the vast sweeping deserts of ancient Mesopotamia, a battle of epic proportions was set to unfold. Two legendary leaders, Alexander the Great, the young and audacious Macedonian conqueror, and King Darius III, the mighty ruler of the Persian Empire, stood at the forefront of their armies, each determined to shape the course of history. As the dust rose and the war drums echoed, the fate of empires and the legacy of these titans hung in the balance. Join us on this journey, as we delve deep into the sands of time, exploring the monumental clash at Gaugamela, a battle that would forever alter the trajectory of the ancient world. In 331 BC, the vast plains near the village of Gaugamela witnessed a clash of titans. On one side stood Alexander the Great, leading the Macedonian forces, and on the other, King Darius III, commanding the mighty Persian army. This monumental battle marked their second and final confrontation, sealing the fate of the Achaemenid Empire. With this battle, Alexander delivered the coup de grace, paving the way for the empire's complete subjugation under his rule. This historic battleground, nestled by the river Bumidus, is what we now recognize as the region around modern-day Erbil, Iraq. Though Alexander's forces were significantly outnumbered, a fact that would make even the most seasoned warrior apprehensive, they managed to defy the odds. Their triumph wasn't just a testament to their courage, but also to their strategic brilliance. Employing superior tactics and astutely leveraging their light infantry, they outmaneuvered the Persian behemoth. This wasn't just a victory for Alexander and his Macedonians, it was a defining moment for the League of Corinth. The aftermath saw not only the collapse of the Achaemenid Empire, but also the end of King Darius III's reign. The vast expanses near Gaugamela in 331 BC became the stage for an epic showdown. Leading the Macedonian forces was none other than the legendary Alexander the Great, while the formidable Persian army was under the command of King Darius III. This colossal encounter was not their first, but it would be their last, determining the destiny of the Achaemenid Empire. With this clash, Alexander didn't just win a battle, he effectively dismantled an empire, asserting his dominance over its vast territories. Situated by the serene river Bumidus, this battlefield corresponds to the areas surrounding present-day Erbil in Iraq. The odds were heavily stacked against Alexander. His troops, though fierce and loyal, were dwarfed in number by the Persian legions. Yet, numbers alone don't win wars. Through a combination of audacity, strategic genius, and the nimble deployment of light infantry, the Macedonians outplayed their Persian adversaries. This victory was more than just a feather in Alexander's cap, it was a pivotal moment for the allies in the League of Corinth. The ripple effects were profound, the mighty Achaemenid Empire crumbled, and the reign of King Darius III came to a dramatic close. In the aftermath of their confrontations, Darius sought to halt Alexander's relentless advance through diplomatic means. The annals of history, as penned by various ancient historians, recount three distinct attempts by Darius to negotiate with the Macedonian conqueror. The first attempt came post the Battle of Issus. Historians from the 1st and 2nd centuries, including Justin, Arrian, and Curtius Rufus, detail a letter sent by Darius to Alexander. In this letter, Darius demanded Alexander's retreat from Asia and the release of his captives. While Curtius and Justin mention a proposed ransom for these prisoners, Arrian omits this detail. The letter, as described by Crassus, was rather confrontational, leading Alexander to dismiss Darius's demands outright. Following the fall of Tyre, Darius approached Alexander with a second proposal. He offered his daughter, Statira II's hand in marriage to Alexander and ceded all territories west of the Halys River. However, accounts vary, Justin's version is vaguer, not specifying which daughter, and only alluding to a part of Darius's realm. Diodorus Siculus, a 1st-century Greek historian, also speaks of this territorial offer and adds details of a proposed friendship treaty and a significant ransom for the captives. Intriguingly, Diodorus claims Alexander hid the original letter, presenting a fabricated version to his inner circle that better suited his ambitions. Yet again, Alexander declined Darius's overtures. Despite 2 failed attempts, Darius wasn't ready to give up. As Alexander journeyed away from Egypt, Darius extended a third, more generous offer. He lauded Alexander for his kind treatment of his mother, Sisygambes, and proposed a grand deal: all lands west of the Euphrates, shared rulership of the Achaemenid Empire, a marriage alliance with one of his daughters, and a staggering 30,000 talents of silver. Diodorus recounts that Alexander seriously considered this offer, discussing it with his confidants. Parmenion, one of Alexander's trusted generals, famously remarked, "Why, Alexander, I'd accept." To which Alexander retorted, "So would I, if I were Parmenion." Ultimately, Alexander declined, asserting that Asia could have but one king. He challenged Darius either to surrender or face him in battle. Historical accounts of this third negotiation vary in details. While Diodorus, Crassus, and Arrian mention an embassy rather than a letter, Justin and Plutarch concur. The proposed ransom's amount also differs across sources. Arrian places this third attempt during the siege of Tyre, contrasting with other historians. Regardless of these discrepancies, one fact remains consistent: Darius's diplomatic endeavors failed, compelling him to brace for another confrontation with Alexander. In the spring of 331 BC, having consolidated his position in Egypt, Alexander made his way back to Tyre. By either July or August, he arrived at Thapsacus. According to the historian Arrian, Darius had stationed Mazius with a cavalry contingent of 3,000 to guard the Euphrates crossing near Thapsacus. However, as Alexander and his forces neared the river, Mazius chose discretion over valor, retreating before the Macedonian army could engage. Upon crossing the Euphrates, Alexander opted for a northern trajectory rather than the direct southeastern path to Babylon. This decision was strategic. The northern route, with the Euphrates and the Armenian mountains to his left, provided easier access to supplies and shielded his troops from the harsh heat of the direct path. Intelligence from captured Persian scouts informed Alexander that Darius had set up camp beyond the Tigris River, intending to block his crossing. However, to Alexander's advantage, he found the Tigris unguarded, though crossing it proved challenging due to its currents. Diodorus offers a slightly different perspective. He suggests that Mazius was tasked only with preventing Alexander's passage over the Tigris. Mazius might have deemed the river's defense unnecessary, considering its strong currents and depth made it nearly uncrossable. Both Diodorus and Curtius Rufus also note that Mazius adopted a scorched earth strategy, laying waste to the lands Alexander's forces would traverse. In a significant celestial event, a lunar eclipse graced the skies after the Macedonians crossed the Tigris. Based on astronomical calculations, this event likely took place on October 1, 331 BC. Continuing his campaign, Alexander led his forces south along the Tigris's eastern bank. For days post the river crossing, Macedonian scouts reported sighting a small Persian cavalry unit, roughly 1,000 strong. Alexander, leading his cavalry, launched an assault, causing the Persian cavalry to scatter. While many evaded capture, some weren't as fortunate, either being slain or taken captive. These captives divulged crucial information. Darius was nearby, with his main camp situated close to Gaugamela. The Persian strategy, or perceived lack thereof, during Alexander's march through Mesopotamia has been a point of contention among historians. Many have questioned the Persians' apparent passivity, wondering why they didn't exploit the vulnerabilities of Alexander's stretched supply lines. Peter Green, a renowned classical scholar, posits an interesting theory. He believes that Alexander's decision to take the northern route was a strategic masterstroke that caught the Persians unprepared. Darius might have anticipated Alexander to opt for the more direct southern route to Babylon, mirroring the path Cyrus the Younger took in 401 BC before his downfall at the Battle of Carrhae. Darius's employment of scorched earth tactics and scythe chariots indicates he might have been aiming to recreate the conditions of that earlier battle. If Alexander had chosen the southern route, the challenges of provisioning his army, especially if faced with scorched earth tactics, combined with the debilitating heat, could have left his forces vulnerable on the plains of Carrhae. However, Alexander's northern trajectory meant a change of plans for the Persians. It's plausible that Mazius, caught off guard, rushed back to Babylon to relay the unexpected development. Darius, adapting to this new scenario, might have then aimed to block Alexander's crossing of the Tigris. But this strategy faltered, possibly because Alexander chose a river crossing nearer to Thapsacus than to Babylon. Adapting on the fly, Darius might have then selected Gaugamela as the most advantageous battleground. However, historian Jonah Lendering offers a contrasting viewpoint. He commends the strategic acumen of Mazias and Darius. Lendering suggests that Darius's decision to let Alexander cross the rivers without resistance was a deliberate move, guiding the Macedonian conqueror to a battlefield of Darius's choosing, where he believed he'd have the upper hand. Darius, having learned from his previous encounter at Issus, was determined not to repeat the same mistakes. At Issus, the constricted battlefield had prevented him from fully deploying his vast army, a disadvantage he was keen to avoid. Thus, he selected a broad, open plain for the impending showdown, ensuring ample space for his larger forces. To optimize conditions for his 200 war chariots, a significant asset in his military arsenal, Darius even went to the extent of having his men level the ground. Despite these preparations, the battlefield's natural features didn't particularly favor either side. There were a few hills scattered across the landscape, but no significant water bodies that Alexander could use as a defensive barrier. The season also played its neutral part, with the autumnal weather being dry and temperate. The sheer magnitude of the Persian army at Gaugamela has been a topic of much discussion among historians. Some contend that Darius's forces might have swelled to over 100,000 men. This vast army was a mix of diverse units: light infantry known as peltasts, the elite immortals, Greek hoplites renowned for their heavy armor, Bactrians, a formidable cavalry force, scythed chariots designed to wreak havoc, and the intimidating presence of war elephants. Hans Delbruck, considering the logistical challenges of such a vast force, believes the cavalry would have numbered around 12,000. He also speculates that the Persian infantry might have been fewer in number compared to the Greek heavy infantry, and estimates the Greek mercenaries in Darius's ranks to be around 8,000. Other historians have their own estimates. Wari in 1998 suggested a total of 91,000, while Harbottle in 2018 believed it to be around 120,000. Both Ingalls and Green, writing in the late 20th century, felt the number wouldn't have exceeded 100,000. These varied numbers highlight the complexities and challenges of piecing together the true scale of ancient armies. Historical accounts of the size and composition of Darius' army at Gaugamela vary considerably. Arrian claims Darius commanded a staggering force of 40,000 cavalry and 1 million infantry. Diodorus Siculus, on the other hand, estimates 200,000 cavalry and 800,000 infantry. Plutarch provides a rounded figure of 1 million troops without detailing their specific roles, while Curtius Rufus offers a more conservative count of 45,000 cavalry and 200,000 infantry. When it comes to chariots and war elephants, Arrian, Diodorus, and Curtius concur on a number of 200 chariots, with Arrian also mentioning 15 war elephants. Among Darius's infantry, around 2,000 were Greek mercenary hoplites. Arrian further elaborates on the diverse origins of Darius's forces. He mentions the inclusion of Indian troops, likely from the region of Gandhara. These Indian contingents were allied with the Bactrians and Sogdianians, all under the leadership of Bessus, the satrap of Bactria. Additionally, Arrian speaks of Indian hillmen who joined forces with the Aracocians, led by satrap Barcentes. These hillmen are believed to have been either the Satigidians or the Hindush. Despite Darius's numerical superiority, the quality of his troops was generally inferior to Alexander's seasoned warriors. Alexander's pezzatheroi, for instance, wielded the formidable 6-meter pike known as the sarissa. In contrast, the primary Persian infantry lacked both the training and the equipment to match Alexander's pezzatheroi and hoplites. Darius's most competent infantry units were his 2,000 Greek hoplites and the elite 10,000 immortals. These Greek mercenaries, fighting in the phalanx formation, were equipped with spears roughly 3 meters in length, shorter than the Macedonian sarissa. The immortals carried 2-meter-long spears. Among Darius's diverse forces, the Armenians stood out as particularly well-armed, equipped in the Greek manner, and likely fought in a phalanx formation. Alexander led a formidable force, a blend of Greek warriors from his homeland of Macedon, the allied states of the Hellenic League, as well as Greek mercenaries. He also had the support of levies from tributary regions like Paeonia and Thrace. Arrian provides a breakdown of Alexander's army, estimating 7,000 cavalry and 40,000 infantry. Delving deeper into these numbers, the consensus among historians is that the Macedonian army's core comprised 31,000 heavy infantry. This number included both mercenaries and hoplites from other Greek states, who were held in reserve. Complementing this heavy infantry were around 9,000 light infantry, predominantly peltasts, though there were also archers among their ranks. As for the cavalry, the Greek contingent was approximately 7,000 strong, showcasing the mobility and swift strike capability that Alexander's forces were renowned for. The stage was set for a monumental clash at Gaugamela. The Persians, having arrived earlier, had prepared the battlefield to their advantage. Darius had summoned the finest cavalry from his eastern satrapies and allied Scythian tribes. He had also deployed scythe chariots, for which he meticulously cleared the battlefield of bushes and vegetation to enhance their deadly charge. Additionally, Darius had 15 Indian elephants accompanied by Indian chariots at his disposal. Yet, curiously, these elephants don't feature in the battle accounts, leading to speculation that they might have been withdrawn, possibly due to fatigue. In terms of formation, Darius, adhering to Persian tradition, positioned himself at the center with his elite infantry. Flanking him on the right were the Carian cavalry, Greek mercenaries, and Persian horse guards. Further to the right center, he placed his esteemed Persian foot guards, known as the apple-bearers or immortals to the Greeks, alongside the Indian cavalry and Mardian archers. The flanks of the Persian formation were dominated by cavalry. On the left, Bessus led a diverse mix, including Bactrians, Dahi, Aracosians, and several other cavalry units, with chariots positioned at the forefront. On the right, Mazius commanded a similarly varied force, with the Cappadocians and Armenians leading the charge. Interestingly, the Albanian cavalry had a special task, to encircle and flank the Greek left. Crassus mentions that the archers in this formation were predominantly Amardi. Facing this vast Persian force were the Macedonians, split into two primary divisions. Alexander himself led the right, accompanied by his elite companion cavalry, Paeonian cavalry, and Greek light cavalry. The left was under the seasoned general Parmenion, tasked with holding the line with Thessalians, Greek mercenaries, and Thracian cavalry. This was crucial, as it would allow Alexander on the right to deliver the decisive strike. The Macedonian center-right featured Cretan mercenaries, followed by Thessalian cavalry and other units. The phalanx, the heart of the Macedonian infantry, was arrayed in a double line. Given the numerical superiority of the Persian cavalry, it seemed almost certain that the Greeks would be outflanked. To counter this, a second line, primarily composed of mercenaries, was instructed to fend off any flanking maneuvers by the Persians. The stage was set for a battle that would shape the course of history. As the dust swirled and the two armies faced off, Alexander made the first move. He commanded his infantry to march forward in the iconic phalanx formation, directly towards the heart of the Persian line. This advance was tactically structured, with the wings of the Macedonian formation angled back at 45 degrees. This formation was enticing, almost beckoning the Persian cavalry to launch an attack on the flanks. As the Macedonian phalanxes locked into combat with the Persian infantry, Darius, sensing an opportunity, dispatched a significant portion of his cavalry and some infantry units to engage Parmenian's troops on the Macedonian left. But Alexander had a strategic ace up his sleeve, a maneuver seldom seen on ancient battlefields. While his infantry was engaged in the center, he, along with his elite companion cavalry, began a calculated move towards the extreme right flank. The objective was clear yet audacious: draw the bulk of the Persian cavalry to the flanks, thereby creating a vulnerable gap in the Persian center. This would pave the way for a decisive strike aimed directly at Darius. The success of this strategy hinged on impeccable timing and precision. Alexander needed to provoke Darius into attacking first, even though Darius, having witnessed the outcome at Issus against a similar Macedonian formation, was hesitant. But as the battle raged and the pressure mounted, Darius found himself compelled to act. He launched his attack, playing right into Alexander's hands. The battle's intensity surged as the Scythian cavalry from the Persian left sought to outflank Alexander's extreme right. This maneuver ignited a prolonged and fierce cavalry engagement between the Persian left and the Macedonian right. Despite being significantly outnumbered, the Macedonians, through disciplined charges and strategic use of reserves, managed to hold their ground against the Persian onslaught, a crucial factor for Alexander's overarching strategy. Arrian provides a vivid account of this phase. The Scythian cavalry initiated the confrontation, clashing with the vanguard of Alexander's formation. Yet, Alexander persisted in his rightward march, almost surpassing the terrain the Persians had previously cleared and leveled. Recognizing the potential ineffectiveness of his chariots if the Macedonians ventured into uneven terrain, Darius ordered his left wing's front ranks to encircle the Macedonian right, aiming to halt Alexander's progression. In response, Alexander dispatched the cavalry of the Grecian mercenaries, led by Menidas, to counter them. However, the combined might of the Scythian cavalry and the Bactrians, due to their superior numbers, repelled the Greeks. In a subsequent move, Alexander commanded Aristo, leading the Paeonians and Greek auxiliaries, to engage the Scythians, pushing the barbarians back. Yet, the Bactrians rallied, re-engaging the Paeonians and Greek auxiliaries, leading to a widespread cavalry clash. The Macedonians faced significant challenges, not only due to the sheer number of their adversaries, but also because the Scythians and their steeds were better armored. Yet, the Macedonians, with their relentless squadron-by-squadron assaults, managed to disrupt the Persian ranks. The momentum shifted in favor of the Greeks following the intervention of Orodes II, likely the last Macedonian reserve in that battlefield sector. However, by this juncture, the battle's outcome was being determined elsewhere, in the center, by Alexander's direct actions. The Persian forces attempting to encircle the Macedonian wing were thrown into disarray when Orodes launched a fierce counterattack. The Persians, overwhelmed, retreated hastily, with the pursuing Macedonians inflicting heavy casualties upon them. Darius, in a bid to turn the tide, unleashed his chariots against the units directly under Alexander's command. However, the Agrianians and other javelin throwers, strategically positioned ahead of the companion cavalry, intercepted many of these chariots, neutralizing them before they could reach the main lines. The few chariots that managed to evade this initial onslaught were met with a clever Macedonian tactic. The infantry opened their ranks, creating lanes through which the chariots rolled harmlessly. Once these chariots were within the Macedonian formation, they were swiftly dealt with. The hypaspists, elite infantrymen, along with the armed attendants of the cavalry, converged upon these chariots, ensuring none posed a further threat. The battle's momentum shifted dramatically as the Persians extended themselves further towards the Greek flanks. Sensing the opportune moment, Alexander began to subtly reposition his rear guard. Methodically disengaging his elite companion cavalry, he readied them for the battle's pivotal maneuver. Reinforcing this formation were the Guards Brigade and any phalanx battalions he could extract from the ongoing melee. With precision, Alexander orchestrated his forces into a massive wedge formation, positioning himself at the forefront, leading the impending charge. The Persian infantry, engaged in fierce combat with the Macedonian phalanxes, found themselves unable to effectively counter this new threat. With a thunderous charge, Alexander's wedge formation tore through the Persian center, decimating Darius' royal guard and the Greek mercenaries fighting for him. Darius, witnessing the rapid disintegration of his center and the relentless advance of Alexander, found himself on the brink of being encircled. The prevailing modern interpretation, based on Arrian's writings, suggests that at this critical juncture, Darius, consumed by fear, chose to flee, triggering a cascading retreat among his troops. Arrian vividly captures this pivotal moment. In the midst of intense hand-to-hand combat, Alexander's cavalry, under his direct command, pressed forward with unmatched ferocity. Their spears struck the faces of the Persian defenders, instilling terror. Simultaneously, the dense Macedonian phalanx, with their long pikes, launched their assault. The combined might and momentum of these attacks overwhelmed Darius, who was already gripped by apprehension. Consequently, he became the first to retreat, setting off a chain reaction of flight among his ranks. In the midst of the battle's chaos, Alexander faced a pivotal decision. He could have pursued Darius, potentially ending the war with a single, decisive blow. However, urgent pleas from Parmenion, his trusted general on the left flank, reached him. Parmenion's troops were in dire straits, seemingly encircled by the Persian right-wing cavalry and under intense pressure from all sides. The situation was so dire that later, detractors like Callisthenes would use this event to undermine Parmenion's reputation. With Darius' escape route leading to the nearby mountains, Alexander had to choose: pursue the Persian king, risking the potential loss of his army, or return to aid Parmenion, ensuring the safety of his forces but allowing Darius to escape. Prioritizing the safety of his men, Alexander chose the latter. Meanwhile, a tactical gap emerged in the Macedonian lines. As Alexander had launched his decisive charge, Simmia's brigade of Pisisteroi, part of the Macedonian phalanx, found themselves unable to keep pace due to the intense pressure they faced. This gap was exploited by the Persian and Indian cavalry from Darius' center. However, rather than capitalizing on this tactical advantage to strike the Macedonian phalanx or Parmenion from behind, these forces were lured by the prospect of plundering the Macedonian camp. Their attempt to rescue the Queen Mother, Sisygambes, was thwarted when she declined their offer. These distracted raiders soon faced retribution as they were ambushed and scattered by the Macedonian rear reserve phalanx during their looting spree. The subsequent phase of the battle was, as Arrian described, the most intense. Alexander and his elite companion cavalry clashed fiercely with the Persian right, which comprised of Indians, Parthians, and the most valiant Persian divisions. This desperate struggle saw significant Macedonian casualties, with 60 companions falling and notable figures like Hephaestion, Cenas, and Menidas sustaining injuries. Despite these losses, Alexander's forces emerged victorious. Observing the unfolding situation, Mazias began to withdraw his forces, much like Bessus had on the opposite flank. However, the Persian retreat soon turned chaotic, especially when faced with the relentless charge of the Thessalian and other Macedonian cavalry units. The once mighty Persian army was now in disarray, their fate sealed on the plains near Gaugamela. In the aftermath of the Battle of Gaugamela, the Macedonians consolidated their victory. Parmenion, a trusted general of Alexander, took charge of securing the Persian baggage train, a treasure trove of spoils. Meanwhile, Alexander, accompanied by his elite bodyguard, set out in pursuit of Darius. The spoils from this victory were immense: 4,000 talents of treasure, the personal chariot and bow of the Persian king, and even the war elephants were captured. This battle marked a turning point, showcasing one of Alexander's most brilliant military achievements and signaling a catastrophic defeat for the Persians. Although defeated, Darius managed to evade capture. Escaping on horseback, he was joined by a small contingent of his forces that had survived the battle. Among them were the Bactrian cavalry, Bessus, remnants of the royal guard, and 2,000 Greek mercenaries. With the Persian Empire now effectively split into its eastern and western halves, Darius addressed his remaining troops. He outlined plans to venture further east to muster another force to counter Alexander, anticipating that the Macedonian king would set his sights on Babylon. Concurrently, he sent letters to his eastern satraps, urging them to remain steadfast in their loyalty. However, the loyalty Darius sought was not forthcoming. Bessus, one of his satraps, betrayed and assassinated him in a desperate bid to escape Alexander's wrath. When Alexander came upon the slain Darius, he was deeply affected. Despite their adversarial relationship, Alexander held a measure of respect for Darius. In a gesture of honor, he arranged for Darius to be buried with full ceremonial rites in Persepolis, the grand ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire. Consumed with rage over the treachery of Bessus, Alexander relentlessly pursued him, eventually capturing and executing him the subsequent year. Most of the remaining satraps, witnessing the changing tides, pledged their allegiance to Alexander, who in turn allowed them to retain their positions of authority. With the death of Darius, an era came to an end. The mighty Achaemenid Persian Empire, which had stood for centuries, is traditionally believed to have concluded its reign with the fall of its last great king. Thank you for watching this episode of History Uncovered. The tale of Alexander the Great and Darius III is a testament to the ever-shifting sands of time and the indomitable spirit of leaders who shaped our world. If you found this video informative and engaging, please like and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from the past. Your support helps us delve deeper into history's rich tapestry and bring it alive for viewers like you. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications so that you never miss a new video. As we bid adieu to the battlefields of Gaugamela, remember that history is not just about the past, it's a guide to understanding our present and shaping our future. Before you go, the algorithm thinks you'll enjoy this video on the screen. Check it out and continue your journey through time with us.